I'll lead us in the pledge.
I would have volunteered for that, but I wasn't prepared for that.
Join in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. John, do we have anybody attending online?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. That is hard to follow remote.
This room is really hard to follow online.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Move into our active agenda then. We'll start with our first item, review revenues and HR benefits, and our city manager / yes, Brenda.
Could I bring up something that we talked about last
Certainly
week?
may.
We had talked about parks, and John said maybe we could recommend a policy to the city council that the city only has 15 parks because that's how long it takes to renew them all. To me, I think that sounds really good, unless, you know, somebody wants to sponsor a park and take it on. I think the dog park, I think any park that needs any kind of maintenance should be included in those 15 parks. That's my 2 cents.
So a maximum of 15 parks is what you're suggesting?
Well, they said that's about how long they have to redo the playgrounds and stuff every 15 years.
Okay.
Bill?
Wasn't the master plan 15 for the city originally? I thought I heard somebody say that.
I think that's, if I counted the dots, I think that's about what we ended up at. It's really based more on acres per thousand than parks, but yeah.
Okay, Sandy?
What happened with that plan that a resident brought to the council for the dog park? Is that gone and nothing came of
Well,
it?
we don't have a council representative here. I believe it's still in the discussion phase. Is that correct, John?
Yes.
With the parks? David, do you have anything you'd like to share on
Yeah,
that?
we're still working with them and yeah. I know that there was some easy grants that we were looking at going after with some of that stuff.
Okay.
And they were raising some money as well, so it's still going.
So that's still in the process. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions or comments before we get rolling?
Well, on parks, I think last time we had that discussion, and it's kind of led here, you know, about how much citizens can do to help with the parks, and I think we need to be careful on how far we put that, you know, I mean, there's a certain level where it's gotta be for professionals. But I think, well, I've mentioned the one that my neighborhood does, I mean, it's major things and it's not as big every year. I mean, the first year we did it, it was like a 4-hour project with, I mean, heavy equipment and everything, but now once a year, I mean, but it's not going out and it's not gonna take care of mowing and making sure. I think there needs to be some guideline of what those groups can do.
And what you do, when you all go out and do it, are there city employees there? Cause when we were talking about seeing if each park had a neighborhood that would want to do something, I was thinking, but what if, you know, Joe on the corner is sick of those bushes and he just decides to, you know?
Yeah, that's an organized, coordinated thing, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's not just go decide you wanna do something, it's advertised and explain what we're planning to do, so.
Yeah,
the city
as
is
we've-
involved.
You've seen in discussions with council over the years with Barker Park. You
Mhm.
can't just go out and decide, well, I'm gonna volunteer and do something and then just go do it in the park. There are standards that have to be met. We don't want to turn everybody loose on the park with a lawnmower, although those big lawnmowers are a lot of fun to drive. And some parks require more than others.
Some citizen doesn't like what's going on here or something, so they go decide to take care of it,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's gotta be an organized, controlled,
Yeah.
with city involved.
It would need to go through Public Works, Brenda.
Last night, the city council, Councilman Neighbor suggested the same thing, that maybe if there would be some people who would want to sponsor a park, I think he called it an endowment or something like that, where it would perpetual, was it a perpetual endowment?
It's usually a sum of money that then the interest from helps keep
Yeah.
paying for the ongoing things, you know?
You know, that would be great. You know, something like that. And if that happened, that someone or a few people took on a park that they wanted to sponsor, which means when it comes time to replace the playground equipment, it's their responsibility. That's great, but I think as far as the city, we need to keep at what the city is capable of taking care of. Otherwise, I think we're gonna get into, you know, 25 parks and pretty soon all the playgrounds are gonna be shut down because we can't
Right.
fix them or
Right.
replace them.
Yeah, this thing has gotta be an extra other than just standard maintenance. It's to take care of a big thing that comes up once a year or, you know, whenever.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, maybe, John, that little pocket park that's over on 17 or going in on 17, somewhere around one of those new developments where that was part, are those parks that the city will be responsible for?
Yes, once it's built and constructed, the city will take ongoing maintenance of.
So that's another thing too to consider, you know, is that gonna be one of the 15, something little like that?
Is it gonna have some kind of a playground or a bathroom that
And
needs to
that,
be
that
maintained?
is a play, that's just about all it is, right? A
I think
playground?
yeah, it's turned to like pickleball and a playground and some parking and a bathroom.
The 15, in my opinion.
I thought it was interesting in the discussion last week in the council meeting when people were complaining about, well, there's no parking. Well, no, not that simple.
Yeah,
See, that's
And
what you
you
learn
put
by
a-
coming
you
to
put a-
this meeting.
Put a park in and then that's just another, I mean, it's not just the developer puts in a park, now somebody's gotta maintain it, and it's a city project, so anyway.
And ultimately, it becomes a policy decision made by council and the mayor. Do they want to have a limited number of parks? Do we want to limit it to a number of acres? Do they not want any limitation at all? You know, if you have 25 half-acre pocket parks versus 13 3-acre parks, one would be easier to take care of than the other, and they both would have their pros and cons, but it's great ideas. It's something that we'll pass on to council. I've written it down as something for council to think about on that high-level policy decision that, you know, do we want to put, what I hear is we want council to say, to decide, is there a limit on how much park we want that we can afford to have? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
and
Okay.
if that
I'm
includes
thinking of days.
looking at the map of where the parks are now, and if there's an area grossly in need, then say, okay, we've got 3 in
We
this
save one for
area,
there, yeah.
which, look at how much they're used and what's the smarter way to have them spread out throughout the city. But-
Guys gotta fix it,
Huh?
cause the two on the top aren't, anyway.
The 2 what?
The two little purple things on top are not possible.
Oh,
Mm.
Or is the purple
So
supposed
this
to
is
be
the-
like potential?
It's a potential area where there's a need.
Mhm.
So, sorry, let me show this so that if anyone online wants to see what we're talking about. So like that one that Sandy brought up that is down in this area of this future purple. This future purple is not as close as this one, but it is close to the water experience.
Mm.
And then these up here are, again, kind of approximates. There is ground that we just acquired from Weber County for a park here.
Mhm.
And then we've been in talks with the landowner up here about getting something up here. So I think you're right. Like this one, it's not going to likely be in the circle. So it shows that there's a gap here, but there may be some potential up a little higher to grab a park. And I think the circle is a 1/4 mile or a 1/2 mile. It was mapped out to try and see if we could get residents within a 1/2 mile of a park.
How many parks are there now?
So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, if you count the,
Call back.
And that includes the dog?
that does not include the dog park.
And does that,
What about
and,
the Frisbee Park?
The equestrian park is included in that.
and the waterworks isn't considered a park, right?
Correct.
So that's okay,
Because a park has to have a bathroom, but you can't put a bathroom over there
yeah.
because of the
But it
well.
will have to be maintained.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to call them something besides parks then, because something like that should
Activity
be included,
center.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that
Just
is,
concerned about the money.
yeah,
And, you know, the
Sure.
people wanting parks and, are we just gonna keep the houses wherever? And I get that people want parks by their houses, but then who's gonna pay for that?
Well, and then,
Absolutely.
then you have Brian's point of view that we have trails to stuff the street. Why do you need to put it?
yeah. Or put a little booth right there where you pay before you get to the playground.
Parks are like rocky road ice cream. Can never have enough, but it's
Yeah.
not always good for you.
Right.
Or cookie dough.
Or you can afford it, or whatever your favorite ice cream is. Anything else before we move on to our illustrious city attorney and city manager and Peter?
I'm just handing it off to Peter and Kate.
All right, well then we'll just do that for you. We're gonna jump from John to Peter for item number 1, review revenues and HR benefits.
John, do you want to pull up I mean, they can review it here, but for people's benefit online, maybe just pull up the budget spreadsheet. You can just share that. Doesn't need to be the most active, the most up-to-date one, just to let it go. And then go to general fund. We'll just start there. In the top. John and I talked earlier today and thought it might be useful just to sort of run down and talk about the different types of revenue streams you see in the city. We're starting to work on certain amounts, but as I sort of indicated earlier in the first couple of meetings, typically we go through sort of an expenditure review, and then we see what our revenues can support. And that becomes sort of the policy discussion and the discussion on the basis of resources in terms of what revenue streams can support. Because we're almost always going to have more needs than we have funds. And so for better or for worse, we're going to talk about the needs the next few meetings. We'll circle back around at the end and look at the amounts that we're going to propose for revenues. But in the meantime, I wanted to sort of have a discussion about the different revenue streams we have here in the city. And I stuck them into 3 different buckets because I thought it might be useful to talk about revenues in terms of 3 different features. The first one is usability. And what that means is that some of the revenues that we get were restricted. We get a grant for body cams, we have to use them for body cams. And so certain types of revenue, it's we have handcuffs to how we use it. And so that is one way to kind of look at our revenue streams. The second one is dependability. Some of our revenue streams are very dependable. They're consistent. They're steady year over year, with very little fluctuation. It's nice to build a base on those dependable revenue streams, recognizing that a good portion of our revenue is not steady and it is variable. And I'll talk about that in a sec. I'll get more into that in a second. And then the third bucket is whether it's amendable by the city or whether we can change it, whether we can, do we have any ability to enact a policy or a tax to change a fee or any sort of revenue source can we make a change on it. And some of our streams, we can pass a tax increase. We can raise our fees, but some of our streams just aren't, we have no, ability to make any difference on how they come in. So those are the three to kind of take a look at. And then I'm going to go down this list here on the left. And just to point out one thing for you is that I put a percentage on each of these rows so that you can see that while that some streams are going to be more material than other streams of revenue. And so as you're kind of going through this, think about where you as a committee can affect the any sort of policy discussion or decision when it comes to revenue in the city. And then if there is an avenue for us to have a discussion about changes in policy or hikes in fees or revenues or taxes, how much does that really affect our overall budget? Because if it's like 1%, 2%, we might still have a conversation, but if it's 72%, we probably want to have more conversations with that one. So the first one and the one that is probably the most obvious in terms of where we have the most ability to affect change is our property tax. Typically, it's unrestricted. We can use it for anything. It's fairly steady, which is why cities and counties like it. And it's allowed to be adjusted subject to truth and taxation and or maybe state legislative laws coming from the state legislature. They're looking at ways in which that can be either expanded or restricted up at the state. And 72% of our revenue comes from general tax. And of that, I didn't break that down more, but it would be good to look at that. I think about 1.7%. I think we're about 20 to 30% of that's property tax. And the rest of it's this one below, which I'm lumping together as sales tax, utility, and motor vehicle taxes. And the reason I put them all together is they sort of come in like sales tax. We have no control over them. This is how the citizens respond in the economy, what they purchase when they're here in the city or when they're in Riverdale or Salt Lake. And depending on their activity and how they behave, we get these amounts into our budget. And this sales tax portion here is the single largest stream of revenue that we have. And so we're always really careful to take a look at it. But if you look at that second column over, it's variable. And I put with a floor because typically it's variable, but it might swing $500,000 one way or the other on a $4 million budget, but you're not getting, or a $4 million, I'm just throwing out an example here. And more than that, but unless, there's a depression or something, typically it doesn't go below a certain amount and it doesn't really go above a certain amount. So we can sort of have some predictability, but it's not, we're always taking a look at it month by month to kind of see where it's going to go.
You've got this at 72%. How much is property tax, did you say?
Property tax, just a second here, is about 24. I said 24% of that is property tax.
Thank you.
And the rest of that, I'm just going to lump it all together as various types of sales taxes, motor vehicle taxes, utility taxes. When you pay your utility bill, part of that comes back to us. And when I say utility, I'm talking about your electrical bills, your gas bill, stuff like that. And then we have no control over it. So from a policy standpoint, it doesn't make necessarily a lot of sense to have a ton of discussion around sales tax, other than just being smart about watching trends so that we can sort of predict where we're going to land month over month, year over year. Going down the next line, we have licenses and permits. That's 3% of our budget. They're typically unrestricted. I would say they're fairly steady, John. And then we can change those. We have the ability to mark those up and down. So there's an ability there to sort of fill in some budgetary gaps, but it is a very, very small part of what we do in our revenue stream. Below that is it's called intergovernmental, and on our budget, probably the short version of that is grants. There's grants, allotments, assessments. They come from the federal government, they come from the state, they come from the county. They're typically restricted. You've got to spend it on the thing they give you the money for. Sometimes they aren't though. Those are really nice, but they're kind of rare.
Is that where ramp grants fall?
Ramp grants,
Okay.
our B&C road funds. We have a few grants over at the police department that I would say backfills a good portion of what they do. But they have strings attached. Allotments and assessments are a little more steady. They come from the state. They're pretty regular. But grants can be all over the board, depending on who's giving them out. So,
But there's really not a revenue stream per se, it's a plus and a minus. that-
Yeah.
correct.
So,
Because they're
Correct.
restricted.
That's a really good way to put it. Whenever I see a grant, I think of it as an expense, not an income source, because it should cancel itself out. So, and then there's really not a whole lot we can do other than we can apply for them. But John told the staff this morning, in order for grants to be useful for the city, it's better to go find money for an existing program than to go find program for existing money. That's usually a more expensive, that actually can cause more expenses to a city or government to go after grants just for a grant's sake. And then all of a sudden you've got a new program you have to operate, and you have to take a staff member and somebody who's doing something you've already budgeted for them to do, and they gotta go now and do something else.
And that
So-
could cause future
Huh?
future
Correct.
expenses, not.
Correct. They're actually more expensive.
Brenda,
Well,
Brenda had.
Brenda.
Just with grants, doesn't the city budget usually have to meet the amount of the grants?
There's a match.
Yeah, so what you'll see in the budget is, if you see a grant line,
Mhm.
watch for the expenditure line. There should be the same. They'll still have a ramp grant income line and a ramp grant expenditure line. They should be the same.
But what she's saying is that there's also another expense that says, 50% of whatever the total is, right?
Oh, okay.
There's a match.
Yeah, sometimes with grants, there's a match as well. So the grant won't pay 100% of the program. It might pay 50%.
So that's why not go find the grant and then decide the program. That
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah, the optimal thing is to look for the things that we're already doing and find money that can offset that. So that's sort of our direction. So below that, we've got charges for services. These are your fees for zoning, development, parks and rec. Not part of the general fund, but I threw in the aquatics in here as well, just so that you can get a sense of what these are. They are unrestricted. In other words, I can use them to spend on anything legally, but typically we do measure them against certain programs. So for example, we're gonna wanna see that the fees in Parks and Rec, and they're not completely supporting all of our expenditures in the parks. We've talked about that, but we want to see them as an offset or a support of parks and recreation programs. They're fairly steady. We have seen some dip in recreation programs in the last couple of years. But for the most part, these types of things are fairly steady. And there is an allowability for us to raise those. We can, as a council, city, or we can look at those and we can change those and we can raise them, we can lower them. But again, that's only 2% of our entire revenue stream, so. So the next one down is fines and forfeitures, that's 2%. These come from our court. They're unrestricted. They're fairly steady, but we don't have any control over their rates. They're set by the state.
No, that's too bad. I say
So-
raise those.
Well,
Money off of them.
That's right.
Find those
And-
suckers.
one thing that we're always reminding people about on those in particular is of the $100 fine, $15 goes to the city and 85 goes to the state. So,
And the 15 goes to cover the cost of the court.
yeah, and that's typically where we kind of align it, is to cover the cost of the court, but, it
But-
is technically unrestricted.
It gets to raise money.
No raising.
Right, yeah, right. You got quotas.
The next one down, you'll see is miscellaneous, and that's where we put our rents, building rentals, sale of assets, merchandise, if we have any, and other. And it's, again, unrestricted, but super variable. So, for example, when I'm budgeting for miscellaneous revenue, what I'll do is I'll look at the past 4 years of performance in that line. And I'll typically take the lowest amount and I'll budget for that, because I just don't know what we're gonna get. An insurance settlement, for example, might come in and that gets booked in miscellaneous revenue.
Or it
And,
might go out also.
or if I'm selling some assets, it's gonna go into miscellaneous revenue, and we don't do those every year and they're variable, so.
What rentals does the city have that you get income from?
We rent out
We had
the,
the homes on 450.
They're all put out now.
They're down, they're gone now,
Yeah.
but we had that.
Except for one.
One's still there.
I was gonna say the senior center.
Hmm.
We just signed a contract with Verizon to rent a cell tower. So they're gonna pay us some money every month to rent out, I guess it's the property
Yeah,
that it's sitting on. And that's gonna bring about $20,000 in. So that part's gonna be steady, but the whole bucket itself goes up and down. And so I tend to be very conservative when I want to look at miscellaneous revenue and budget likewise. We'll flip this over. Investments, they're 1% of our revenue streams. These come from when we have cash that we excess cash, different times of the year where our cash flow is good. We want to put it in the bank and have it grow. And so we typically send it to the state of Utah where they invest it for us. And then we take the income stream off of that. And for the most part, we pay for other things other than general fund out of that. We're helping to backfill some of our enterprise funds. But we do have a bond, 5-year bond that we've invested in, and we take those proceeds and you'll see those in the general fund. They're unrestricted. We can use it for whatever. They're somewhat steady, I would say, but they're dependent on our rates. So for example, the last couple of years, our investment revenues looked real good because the rates have been higher, but now they're starting to drop. We're seeing that start to kind of slow down. So we have to sort of adjust for that. When we look at the budget, I'm probably going to look at it and I'm probably going to be conservative and estimate that the rates are going to continue to steadily go down for the year and budget that way. And if they go back up, then
You have a little extra.
a little extra. Next one is our transfers, donations, use of fund balances. I honestly don't know why donations and transfers are in the same bucket, but it's just the way that our financials put them together. We'll start with donations. These are typically, I say they're restricted. Legally, they're not, but we will want to make sure that if we have donations for example, I just had some people donate, some employees actually donate to parks. They wanted their money to go to parks. So we collected that as a parks donation, hoping that revenue stream can help us offset the cost of our parks.
we had that donation for Loman View for the pickleball.
Yeah. when we
a
got,
couple years ago.
we're out raising money for charity days, those are largely donations. And that helps pay for that event. The next one down is use of fund balance. You'll see that on our financial statement. And when you see that, that's sort of a catch-all for if we have revenue left over from the prior year, we'll budget to use it in the next year. It's variable and it has to be budgeted for us to use it. So, and council has to approve. You'll see fund transfers, lease contracts, and offset charges. And what that is that our city has multiple different funds, but some funds pay for other funds. An example is our water, our sewer, our storm, and our solid waste. These are all enterprise funds. They run as a separate kind of a business, but they use a lot of general fund resources. My time, John's time, Katie's time. And so we actually charge those funds a fee, and those come through as a transfer into the general fund as revenue. In fact, that's even not completely true because it's in the expenditures as a negative expense, but in essence, it's a revenue. But I wanted to, and we're going to get more into transfers when we talk about that later on. But when you see that, that just gives you a sense of what that is, and just recognize it's kind of like borrowing from Peter to pay Paul.
We borrow from you.
You know, it's not a revenue source really. It's just we're taking cash and money from one activity of the city to pay for another. Did I say that right?
It's just a way to allocate the expense to the fund or.
It's a great tracking mechanism.
Yeah.
So you know how much of say the attorney's time in the city or HR, finance director, how much of their time is being used by individual departments. It allows you to break that out and track that.
Okay. Yeah. All right, the next few, we're getting out of the general fund here, and we're just gonna kind of go over those briefly. So when you see those, you'll understand what they're about. The transportation utility fees, sometimes you hear it called the TUF. That is a roads tax. We just approved an amount on that last month. It is restricted to roads, so it can't be used for anything else other than our roads. And it's a fairly steady stream, so that's nice to have because it's predictable. And we have the capacity as a city to levy that. And so that's why that becomes an area where there's policy discussions and interest by the public as to how that's going to be used. Now, below that, we have our impact fees, and we've got several. Impact fees are paid by developers. They're paid by those that are trying to build in our city to pay for the infrastructure that it takes to run those new developments. Essentially, that's sort of where they're set up. We don't usually spend a lot of time policy-wise on those because they're restricted. The engineers tell us what we have to spend it on, so we have no ability to really determine where it gets spent. It is steady-ish, depending on what developments we have going on in the city. But we do have the capability of changing those fees. So if we feel like that we need to raise them to cover the cost of the infrastructure that's going in, we can do that. If we feel like that they're too onerous on the businesses, we can lower them to get them to develop in the city. And by developing, they might bring in additional sales tax revenue. So there's some trade-offs there with that sort of discussion. We've had a couple of those in the last couple of months. So,
But the money that is received stays with the entity in which it was taken. So water stays with water, sewer with sewer.
correct.
You can't move it around.
Correct. Yep. It's restricted to the fund that it is levied for.
It has to stay in there unless, isn't there an unless in there someplace? That you could move it, but it would require a lot of approvals?
For impact fees, no.
Oh, not.
With the exception that we are allowed to do what's called a excess capacity transfer. And that's specified in the engineering documents where we can pay, we don't pay the general fund back, but we pay the utility funds back for pre-installed pipelines and things like that.
The next one below is our utility fees. That's what you pay for your water, your sewer, stormwater, solid waste. That's your city bill. We actually have, I don't have a percentage on here. There's a lot of cash that we collect on that. Millions of dollars, maybe 4 or 5 altogether.
Actually greater than property tax, isn't it?
Yeah, it's greater than property tax, maybe about the same as sales tax. And so there is a lot of revenue that you'll see coming in. The issue though is it's restricted. So it can only be used in the fund that you're paying a water fee, it's going to the water maintenance, the personnel maintaining that water system, and the infrastructure for that system. It's steady. We have the ability to change the fee on those. So there can be a policy discussion there as well, but typically it's not going to be, you can't use that to sort of backfill like property taxes or sales taxes or roads. It's really, it needs to be looked at in terms of just covering our costs in those particular funds. And then the last one I put on here, just kind of as an aside, because you'll see this in the enterprise funds. Only you'll see them only there. You'll see this it's called contributions from developers. And we have hundreds of thousands of dollars that come into the city this way. They're non-cash donations. And essentially what they are is when a developer comes in and they build out a development, the roads, the curb and gutter, everything that they create that's not going to be owned by or deeded to a property owner, essentially gets gifted to the city as a donation. With lots of strings attached because we have to maintain that into perpetuity at that point. And so it comes in as a non-cash asset. It's variable dependent upon the development. And just so that if you see that and you go, what's that all about? That's what that is. And you'll see that on the revenue that comes into a fund.
But that's the same type of thing where it's offset by a liability.
Yeah, it'll get transferred out at the end of the year to the balance sheet. But just so that you're aware of what that is, I just wanted to make sure that you'd be we could understand that intelligently when you see it on the budget. So
This was spectacular, by the way.
Was very interesting. Thank you.
Questions on the revenues for Peter? Mayor, welcome. Councilman, welcome.
Where do we stand year to date on revenue? Is it on target?
yeah, I would say, and again, going back to what I said earlier, the largest revenue stream is sales taxes. And so we watch that very, very closely. And we're
Just still trending down.
it's trending steady at this point. So
Is it 0.5%? We're 0.5% over our projections.
yeah. Yeah. We're a little bit behind where we were last year compared to budget, but we're over year in real number terms. So that's kind of where it sits. And then we're looking right now at some different metrics to sort of project where we think we might go. We've had some in the past that we've used. So we're gonna review those and look and see if that can be useful to make decisions and those kinds of things. But for now, we're about on par where we thought we were gonna be, so.
Tell Colette to get out shopping.
We spent all our money last year.
Okay, I guess we'll move on then. We'll go to Katie, who's gonna tell us about our HR benefits.
Yes, thank you. Perfect. Okay, so I put together a quick presentation just to kind of give you an overview of the employee benefits that we offer here to our employees, part-time and full-time. So the purpose of this presentation is to show you that our benefits are designed to be both competitive and sustainable, helping the city retain talented employees while providing access to affordable health care as required under federal law. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Affordable Care Act, that makes health insurance more accessible, protects people with pre-existing conditions, and encourages cost-effective plans. So rising healthcare costs mean that many employers are shifting from traditional plans, which we still do currently offer to our employees, to the high deductible, the HSA eligible plans, which we also offer. These are typically cheaper for both employees and employers.
What was, sorry,
okay.
that's okay.
Yeah.
So what's the percentage that traditional versus a higher?
About how many employees or what
Yeah.
percentage we pay.
Well, no, yeah, how many people go for the traditional versus?
Percentage.
So right now, we currently have 52 employees on the high deductible plan. So over the last couple of years, we've been encouraging our employees, even though we can't tell them which plan to select, we've been encouraging them to go towards an HSA, just because it helps them out. It's actually a cheaper way for them to go. Essentially, the problem that we're having is a lot of employees are still that have been on a traditional plan for most of their life. It's a scary switch when you're going over, when you've got to pay 100% of your health care up front before the insurance kicks in. We have a really young workforce. And so when you think about, having a baby and you're going into the hospital and you've got to pay $4,000 up front before, your insurance kicks in, that's been a little bit that's made a lot of our employees nervous. But we have seen our shift go from most traditional down to the HSA. So in order, and I'll kind of get to that a little bit later on, but the city did kind of incentivize the employees to go towards the HSA. We do offer our employees the single, the double, and the family plan, a set HSA contribution. In past years, I think it was even before I got here, it would be a monthly contribution that they would pay. The city council and mayor decided that we would do a one lump sum January 1, just to kind of help employees have that money in their accounts January 1, to where if there was an emergency or they had something where they needed to use those funds, they would have those. So right now, for a single plan, we give $800 to the employee. For a double plan, employee plus one, it's $1,100, and then for a family, it's $1,500. And that goes into their account on January 1, and then they can also make their contributions up to the setting throughout the year as well.
So what happens if they only work for the city for 3 months?
So unfortunately, that's a loss for the city.
For the city.
Mm-hmm. We don't see that a lot. Fortunately for us, we haven't seen that, but we have seen it, unfortunately. But it's just something that we go into knowing that that's a possibility, and it's just a loss to the city. So, okay. Next one.
Next slide.
So why benefits matter? So like other living expenses, care costs have been steadily increasing. So with housing, transportation, and healthcare all putting pressure on budgets, offering competitive benefits is key to recruiting and retaining staff and maintaining a stable, capable workforce. You go to the next one. So kind of how our benefit process works. We have a benefits broker that we currently, Golden West is our current broker. And every year they gather quotes from multiple insurance carriers, and then they review the market to make sure our health plans stay affordable and sustainable. They look at things like our workforce, how many employees we have, past claims, overall cost, and then they recommend the plans that provide good coverage without breaking our budget. So, go ahead.
Do you have, do you, or maybe John, have any say in what carriers or what the coverage is?
We do. The city is the final decision maker on what plans we want to offer based on the numbers that come back. I will say over the last couple of years, and Phil, you were actually in the discussion a couple of years ago about the benefits. We were with our current plan that year a couple of years ago, And we got our quotes back and it was a little over a 20% increase, which was huge. So huge for the city, huge for employees. And so at that point, we asked for Golden West. We gave them a couple of suggestions, PEHP being one of them. I don't know if you're familiar with PEHP, but that's the state of Utah. It's any government
Public Employees Health
employee.
Association.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's great. So that's, but what they did is they went out and they got us quotes from, 4 or 5 different carriers, and then we meet individually with them and they say, here's what each of the carriers can give you at the rates that they can give you at. The tricky part of this is a lot of them will say up front, the rates look great, but then after a year, you're going to have this big increase. So it's, you'd like to say, exactly what it's going to look like and trends are going to look like, but unfortunately, that's not always the case. And so the last couple of years being with PEHP, we have, and you'll see it in the slide coming up, but we have stayed pretty close to where we were. We have had increases, but nothing like the 20-something% that we would have had we stayed with our previous carrier. So let's see. So currently, the city covers 98% of the premium for a traditional plan, and then we cover 95% of the high deductible plan. So the chart below shows you what each employee pay each month. And then just to give you kind of an idea of what our employees are making, the average city employee makes about $31.59 per hour. So if you're looking at, so we offer the 2 plans, the PEHP traditional and then the Star HSA. As you can see, the HSA is going to be lesser of a payment for our employees. And actually the traditional has a higher deductible and things like that. And that's why we're kind of encouraging our employees to hopefully switch to the HSA. And after talking with Golden West over the last couple of years, it may be to the point where our employees don't have the option for a traditional plan. It may just all go in the HSA or self-funded at some point. So you can see here's the cost of what the city pays versus what the employee pays. So kind of like we just talked about, we're just encouraging our employees just to go to an HSA just because, we believe it's a better cost for both of them. However, right now, while we still offer those 2 options, we give them both of those options as of right now. So here's kind of our past year's trends. So 2022-23, we had a 7.8% increase. That following year is when we had kind of signed on to contract where they weren't going to increase our rates at all. And so that was really great for the city. The next one is when so 23-24 is when we actually went with, tried to stay on with Regents Blue Cross to kind of give our employees some consistency. Over the past few years, we have had to switch our benefit carriers just to stay up in being able to afford them, which is hard. I don't know if you've had to switch benefits, but it's hard. And so when you
have to switch doctors too.
Exactly, you just have to switch hospitals, you have to switch doctors, and that can cause a lot of upset amongst people. So that year right there, the 24, that's when we actually got the 20, I can't remember, John, was it 22 something odd percent? So then we went with PEHP and they gave us a 6.6% increase. So you can see that's a huge difference. So obviously we went with the PEHP. As of right now, talking with our benefit brokers, we're looking at roughly an 8.5 to a 12% increase next year. And then they're anticipating 12% yearly after that. So we don't know the exact numbers till typically October-ish. And then that's when we will sit down with them and they'll give us the exact numbers of what it's going to look like. So here's the projected increases. This was from Golden West. This is for prescription costs. As you can see, it's going up. There's no end in sight, unfortunately. And then the next slide will show kind of the trend for health insurance. As you can see right there, we're anticipating an 8.5% increase for this next benefit year.
And this graph is a little confusing. It's not showing that there's been a downward trend. It's showing that the rate increase trend has moved down, but is now starting to move back up. So if this was a bar graph, it would or a line graph, it would actually go like this as opposed to a rate graph.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so some of the other benefits that we currently offer our employees, the dental, vision, voluntary accident, and then identity theft protection. So luckily for us, we did switch dental and vision a couple of years ago, and our rates have maintained the same. So we're happy with that. Allstate and InfoArmor, the city does not pay any portion of that. That's just an option for our employees to sign on to if they choose to do that.
And isn't dental the same, or vision's the same way?
Yeah, vision we don't pay as well. Vision is just strictly for the employee, and our vision benefits that you see up here, that's only going to be for your eyeglasses, your contacts, anything eye related visits, things like that would all fall under your health care. So PEHP. So paid leave and other benefits that we offer. So we offer retirement. So we are enrolled in the Utah State Retirement System. So our employees either come on as a tier 1 or a tier 2. And then depending what they're enrolled in when they are hired, there's a certain percentage rate that the city's required to pay into their system, into their retirement plan every pay period. We also offer a supplemental retirement program. Currently, we're using Mission Square, and the city will match up to 4% of an employee's salary when the employee contributes to their retirement plan. Last year, the council made the decision because the budget has been tight, like we all know, the last couple of years. The council did make the decision to give our employees a wage increase. But with that, they took down the 2%. They used to contribute up to 6%. So the employees have had to pick up that 2%. But again, we were super grateful that that was even in the books for us at that point. So paid leave policies, which really support work-life balance. Is that how you say it, Mayor? You say work-life balance, life work. Yeah. So annual vacation leave, sick leave, and then holiday leave. The annual sick leave, everybody starts at 3.7 hours every pay period, and then it goes up as years that they serve or that they're here with the city. Sick leave stays the same. It's I should know this off the top of my head.
2.7.
3.7.
Oh, 3.7.
3.7. Something like, yes. And then holiday leave, we currently have 13 paid holidays. Another really good program that we do offer our employees is our employee assistance program. We use Blomquist Health. I'm not sure if any of you have ever had an assistance program like this, but it's amazing. And actually, a lot of our employees use this service quite a bit. We really encourage it. This service is provided to all of our employees and their immediate family members or any family member that's living in the home with them. And basically what it does is it provides support for life challenges, including financial issues, marital or family problems, substance abuse, mental health concerns, grief, and then there's just a whole list of other things that they cover. It's low cost for the city and it offers valuable support to our employees. I meet with them quarterly. The Blomquist Health representative and our employees are taking advantage of this. We're actually one of the higher percentages of those that are taking advantage of it, so we're getting our money's worth.
That could be
Definitely.
good and bad, though.
You know what, though? Honestly,
They need more because they work in North Hawkins City?
no. And you know what? It's 100% confident. So we don't ever know what it is. But to be honest with you, I would rather have somebody take advantage of a system like this than to hold it in and suffer on the inside. So
We had this at my husband's work, but we only had so many sessions.
Mhm.
And then, 4 sessions, whatever, then you had to go out and find your own. Is that how this works?
that is not. So ours, there's not a set limit. So if you get with a therapist and they're feeling like they're making progress and you're making progress with them, they'll continue the service. If they meet with you and they feel like, you know what, we're at our end that where we can help you here, we're going to recommend that you visit such and such place. And then they'll hook you up with another, either whether it be a therapist, a treatment center, whatever the case may be. But there is not a limit, no. And then, go ahead.
On the annual leave and sick leave, does that accumulate or is there a cap?
So there is so they can accumulate annually. They can only roll over. So the last pay period in April, they have to be below 640, I believe is what it is.
So you just can't accumulate that
No.
forever?
No, because what happens is we do pay out our vacation leave and sick leave at the end of the year. So that was another change that we made in our policy a couple of years back. It used to be that you could accrue and accrue and accrue. What we did change, I want to say it was 2022 off the top of my head. Anybody coming in after that, there is a cap put on that payout.
At least you can manage the expense that way.
Cause you want people to use sick leave when they're sick as opposed to getting it paid out later
Right.
and someone come to work sick?
Yeah, definitely. And then life insurance, who we use, we go through Unum, and then accidental insurance is through Allstate. Life insurance is paid. We have a paid portion through the city, and then the employees can opt into getting more life insurance if they choose to. Same with accidental. So basically, in summary, our benefits aim to support employees while remaining affordable and sustainable, with plans managed responsibly to protect the city's long-term financial health. You guys have any questions?
So the rates for all of these affects the budget.
Absolutely,
I mean, it's not all eaten by the employees. I mean, that is a city expense.
it is. But go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask John, where are we with our 90 and 95% city coverage? How does that compare us to other entities our size within our circle of influence?
So we've looked, and Katie's even done more. It averages from 85 to 100% covered
Okay.
by other municipalities. Pleasantview, for example, covers 100%, but it is only a high deductible plan. And then South Ogden, I think, is 85% of a traditional plan.
Okay.
And so we're kind of in the middle, but I think Katie has better numbers.
I did, and actually Pleasant View, yes, you're right, John, they did pay 100%, and they just changed it to where they are paying 95% now, so they, I
Of
think,
an HSA only?
HSA only, so I did pull numbers, from local cities. I don't know that I want to list each one of them out, but basically what it says is we are very in line with what other cities are doing. The hard thing is you can't compare apples and oranges together. Insurance rates are based off of how many employees you have. Sometimes they'll look at past claims, so if we have somebody that's been in the hospital or a family member that's been in the hospital the year prior, they'll look at those rates, and then that's what they'll compare to when they're giving us our new changes. So some of the cities that I've pulled are substantially smaller than us. And they pay a little bit more, while others are, a little bit higher and they pay less. So it's hard to compare exactly when there's such variances in pulling those numbers. So
What's the lowest that anybody pays?
So 90% is what, are you talking about actual dollar amount or percentages?
Percent, yeah.
90%.
Okay.
Is the one that I've gotten out of the three that I talked with. But basically it's roughly we're looking at about a 14% difference among the ones that are paying a lot versus that are paying a little. So I would say we're fairly in line with where we're at.
Questions? Jeff?
You indicated, how you compare this with any other cities, and I don't know if this is even possible, but how does it compare with private industry? You have any idea? Of course, their plans are probably so variable, it's hard to compare.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know. I mean, I can talk to you about my husband, for example. He's a private, and his insurance is terrible. He's with a union and they pay 100%, and it's awful. I was actually on his plan a couple of years ago and I thought, well, I'm just gonna save some money here and not do it. And it wasn't worth it. The customer service, the fees, so I can speak only on that.
Yeah, I can understand the comparable with other cities.
Yeah.
That other one was just an interest.
Yeah, I mean, does anybody else have any?
Can I share a little story?
Yeah,
I was
absolutely.
talking to my son today. He's a college professor. And the college that he works out of is in Florida. And they just changed their insurance plans. In fact, they changed March 1st, but they didn't notify the employees until March 3rd. So they're requiring them to pick, same thing, traditional or HSA. And for a family, it is $2,000 a month premium. But their deductible is $14,000 a person.
See, and how do people pay for that?
And they have no option to go to Obamacare, for a lack of a better name. They have to have the insurance from this company.
That's probably don't qualify.
Yeah, no, they can't, because the company offers insurance, so they have to go through this.
It makes my
So
stomach
how
hurt.
I was blessed enough to stay home and raise my kids. There is no way that they could do that without having two parents working full-time.
You're saying the premium your son will pay will be $2,000?
But if he had a family, he would have to pay $2,000 a month.
And
Plus it
still
would be
have,
Their deductible 14,000
a person.
per person.
So the max they will pay in a year is
Catastrophic is
$120,000.
all it is.
I don't even know how you do that, to be honest with you.
You live in a
Blows
Winnebago,
my mind.
because you can't buy a house.
Oh,
That's hard.
it would be,
They're not cheap.
if my son had a family, he would pay half of his monthly income for insurance. I don't know how that's even legal, honestly.
The only reason I brought up the comparison was that it's an annual conversation, right? Amongst residents, you know, that, because typically in the private industry, the employers pay in that 80 to 85% range, and so more of it is covered for the public employees. But they're also paid less than you typically get paid when you're in the private industry. And we're not competing with the private industry either with our employees. We talked earlier about that. Attract and retain policy that we have at the city. And that we've been maintaining for a number of years, that that really becomes part of the competitive package. And it's not just the hourly wage. That it all comes down to it, and it's getting harder and harder every year on the insurance side.
and I think, and Katie mentioned this, but just to reiterate, we've been encouraging people to move to the HSA plans because it ends up being a little cheaper for the city. But even with the money that we put in, but what we've seen is we've run numbers and scenarios. We believe it's actually cheaper for the employees as well when there's a problem. That it ends up in the long term being better for everybody, but not everyone has. I think our deductible is $6,600. And not everyone has that in their bank account.
Well, the key is it's an education process for them too, to understand that they need to take the difference
Yeah.
that they would have been in spending for a PPO plan
Mhm.
and then put that in their HSA so that they have that money.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion among staff of going to HSA only?
We had that last year.
I remember having it last year.
We have not, the broker hasn't given us the new numbers yet for this year, but we'll have that same conversation again. And I think we can, it's, just like our benefits book, it says exactly what everything costs. I mean, it's not a secret number. PHP is a little more stable than some of the other commercial vendors, but their plan is sometimes not as good. We do have some employees that there are things that aren't covered.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, other thoughts, comments? All right, let's go on to number 2 then. Review and
Thank you.
discuss.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katie,
You're very welcome.
and John and Peter.
Here's the schedule sheet.
I need one.
Oh, I thought that, sorry.
You got one more, John? There you
Yep.
go.
Oh, no, you got one.
And it shows both. The Citizen Budget Committee schedule is the first page, second page is the City Council. That's it.
Well, that was fast.
Well, I mean, now discuss, because we,
Entertain a motion to adjourn?
this is based on what we did last year and what we have kind of tentatively planned for this year. See?
Yeah.
So today's discussion for revenues and HR benefits will take place on the 24th.
C
See?
would be police, administration, court, recreation, and parks. C would be John's finger hitting something on the keyboard.
Well, the copy and then paste it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was probably trying to do
Pretty
copy.
much most of the general fund, I would say, is there, right? Good portion of it.
So what happens if, I don't know if that one passed or not, the one that says you have to submit everything by, I think it got pushed for April 1st thing. What if it says May 1st?
For what?
The tax rate.
Oh, yeah.
This is, so those of you who don't know, the legislature is looking at passing a bill that requires the budget officer to give the city council a number for maximum property tax increase. And then the city council is locked into that number. There's been some pushback on it because now you've taken Peter as the budget officer and what he says on May 1st or April 1st ties the hands of the council. And so there's been some pushback. That was also in the same bill that was capping the property tax increase at 5%, would be the max for any municipality or special service district, not for schools, but just those two.
Imagine that, not for
And-
schools, that'd be.
And every city manager I talked to when it was built, before they took out the 5% cap, every city was like, well, we'll just say we're doing 5% every year. And then the council in their process could back it down. And so more than likely, that's what would end up happening is that the budget officer would think of a worst case scenario number, which is kind of what the council had done for the past several years. Like, we're going to announce 25, even though we think we'll do 10 or 5. And
So you'll still have that option,
yeah, the council can always go less than what's announced,
but not high.
not more.
But it seems
Just-
preemptive and stupid,
Yeah.
just to make up a number every year.
It's locking council in much sooner.
And
This is
And it-
legislator can say he did some.
Exactly. And that's
And
what
it-
you're telling-
well-
This is obviously political. Come on.
Worst thing that happened.
And there are some good intentions because they're trying to get the discussion out in the public sooner than later.
But, yeah, and when they're just trying to contain the things that are contained, like cities and counties, and just ignore this thing called the school district that just does whatever they want, and even capping them to 5% is still a bazillion dollars.
It's the
compared to what
largest
city-
entity that taxes us.
Yeah.
Well, it forces a truth and taxation meeting too.
True, but the school board,
No, for the city,
Oh, yeah.
because you're gonna project.
but you're gonna do that. Usually, I'd say you're gonna have something, if you don't have something every year, there might be an issue. I mean, I think Phil said it a long time ago. I was like, why don't we just do 3% of the year? Because that's usually what the CPI is.
Yeah,
I agree. that
And,
everybody
you know, you
knows
look-
about it.
Yeah, and you just said, with healthcare costs, they don't go down. I think the one year you had a 0, but that's not normal. Healthcare costs are a big chunk of the whole salary thing. Anyway, sorry. I'm going on.
so any questions, comments on the schedule then, the budget schedule?
I will not be here on April 1st.
Are you joking?
Anybody can.
He won't be here on Monday.
April 1st.
Oh,
So Phil,
I get it. I'm slow, but I get it.
Phil, I talked with Brian earlier in the week on the schedule. And I thought I could convey kind of what he's thinking on it. Is that, so next time we meet, we're gonna talk about enterprise funds and pretty much all things transfers and capital is gonna be next go around. What I'm just kind of conveying what he talked to me about. Think about the questions that you want, things you want to be talked about or questions you have related to that. If you could submit them before the meeting, then that gives staff time to come prepared to have a more robust discussion.
And that's which meeting?
The 4th,
Before.
sorry, the 18th.
So in theory, this same conversation will happen at the end of every meeting. And what the group would say is, well, on the 18th, we're going to talk about enterprise funds and the admin transfer. So what are some questions that you'll want staff to bring answers to? And then also, if you have others, send them to Brian and he can forward them on.
So
As he
talk
goes.
about it now or submit them later on after you go home and think about it.
An example, sorry, Peter, I interrupt.
Well, it's okay.
So like an example would be for like police is, and you have a really hard time with why don't we have more people not policing, but giving ordinance fines because of all the ordinance violations we have. So why don't we have more CSOs, and so that would be a question, that's because it costs this much, yada, yada. Or, you start that conversation. That type of thing, I think is what John's looking for.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that needs to come out of this meeting is like for today, council will be talking on the 24th about the revenues and HR benefits, and we have the annual question of, is this the year that we go to an HSA only offering? And so that's a recommendation. I think it's at the end of this meeting where we can all make those recommendations that on the 24th, whatever the next meeting is, when it'll go before council, that Brian will be there representing the committee and he can say, council, this is what the committee's recommending for discussion or for policy change or reductions or inclusions or whatever it happens to be.
It's, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
And the way it's designed to be built, like there may be fluff in here, but so today we talked about revenue and HR benefits. On March 18th, you'll meet again, so you could finalize that discussion on what the recommendation is for council, because council will discuss it on the 24th.
Right.
So we tried to give you a presentation meeting, then a little discussion for policy to recommend to the council, so you get a little time to simmer on it, but it may not always work perfectly because of the way the council schedules do.
Can we build that into the agenda? So that we go through that process, we start the meeting with reviewing last meeting's topic and asking for anything we want to give to council next week and then we can launch into that week's actual topic.
So, right, we'll call it like policy recommendations.
Yeah, so on the 18th, we're gonna be talking enterprise funds and admin transfers. But before we get into that, we'll have a conversation reviewing revenues and HR benefits. Did anybody come up with any ideas, anything that you want Brian to present as our chair to council on the 24th about HR and benefits?
Okay.
Then we'll just do that as it bounces all the way down.
Yeah, we will add that to the beginning of every agenda, that the follow-up and recommendation.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. To me, maybe I'm just really dense for a moment. It's happened before, so April 1st, please, right?
Yep.
And we don't meet again till the 15th. The council's discussing it on the 14th. How would we do that?
And
There's
that,
not
There's some disconnects, I think.
and that's what,
Okay.
yeah, so there's a little bit of glitches.
making sure I'm not.
You weren't dense. You caught it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
This time.
I don't want to be brusque in
What?
here, you
Why
know?
we have email?
right.
No, look at it.
And
Words.
And then one thing I mean, you see it on here on the council, but approved tentative budget, the council has to do that night. It doesn't mean that it's locking anything in other than it makes a document official and published.
It's a draft.
Yeah.
One other thing for the agenda, could you add vocabulary lesson? At the
Word of the
beginning,
day.
word of the day,
That could be our prayer.
and that'll be Sandy's assignment
Yeah.
to bring us a new word of the day.
I will do that.
We have brusque.
So one thing for today is I kind of keep notes on everything. And one of the things that we had written down a long time ago was for employee retention, quote unquote, is to ID total benefits. And I don't know, we kind of talked about each of the things that we have, but as I don't know if it's government or some company did this where they said, this is your total benefit package. Is that something that we do for employees, or is that something that?
Like you're looking for like a percentage or a dollar amount or?
My husband's job used to say, you get this much an hour, and then these are the benefits that you get. So instead of only getting $20 an hour, you're getting $60 an hour.
Something like
I
that. And I
thought
think
it
that-
was kind of silly because.
It was kind of silly, but I think,
Benefits.
but as you go through, you think, oh, I didn't get much of a raise this year, but then your
Insurance
health
went up.
coverage, you know,
Yeah,
The
that's
value of
true.
your benefits.
you know,
Well, so
Well-
we do have the book that we can, I mean, I can pull it up right now and the group can talk about, but we do share that with the employees because every year when we go to the renewal phase, we sit them down and say, here's everything that's changed, here's what we know. And so they get it. But you want it, because I can pull up the booklet and we can walk through it. It's
no, I think the overall thing is that was connected to employee retention, and I don't have much more than what I.
So where I work,
Let's see if I-
we did something very similar to what you're talking about. They did your annual reviews And after that was approved, then they came back with a document that showed what your bump was going to be, but it also showed what your total compensation would be, including your benefit package. Because that benefit package, and this is a very good benefit package that the city's offering, in my opinion, compared to the private sector.
Vacation, PTO, sick, which
Yeah,
nobody gets sick anymore.
Yeah,
So
maybe
there's-
we're not
there's a
getting
lot
big
of-
Raise, but look how much more the city's paying for.
there's a
employees.
lot of value
like
to the
PTO.
benefit.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's something that we need to do, but I wrote it down. Usually I don't write anything down.
Well, and they did it employee by employee, because it's very easy for them to do, because it's loaded into the computer. And whatever that employee's annual wage increase is, plus the benefit package, that benefit package probably works for most. It's not that hard to do, but it helps the employee understand what their total benefits are working at the city.
Well, and we did at one time, talk about, offering employees a monthly stipend to not take city insurance. So if they have a spouse who works, for example, or another way to get insurance, then they could opt out of our insurance, go on their spouse's plan, and then also get a little bit of money for us. I think Ogden did that.
My past employer did.
And we talked about doing it, and we asked employees who would be interested, and what we found is when you do that, we have quite a few employees who don't take city insurance. And we found that if you added them into the pot, plus those that would disconnect, it would cost more than if we just left it as it was.
It lowers your rate, it higher your rates because your pool gets smaller.
Yeah. So, but that's a policy question. I know that there are several folks who would love that policy, especially those who are already on their spouse's insurance. Or have a different way to get it.
I've got to go to a meeting at 4:30. But I just wanted to say one more thing about the agenda here. Before we meet on our next meeting, I will also get you guys the yellow sheets for these departments ahead of time, with the intent that when a department comes in to do a presentation, we've asked them not to just go down the list, but to come in and spend more of their time talking about their big changes. Yeah. So that we're not talking about office supplies 16 different times. So,
That was really entertaining though.
so.
And
You buying the brooms?
Yeah.
You're gonna learn another new.
Oh, my God.
And if you weren't aware, if you go to the Utah Right to Know website, it will show you for every employee, their compensation and their total benefit package. And it doesn't show the current, it shows what they did last year. So even though we do a fiscal year, it's based on a calendar year is how the state reports it. So, that's.
So did we talk about whether or not, or do we need to talk about whether or not keeping salaries, not keeping, we've been doing yearly, but there was also in the past, there was a mid-year. Is that something that?
I thought
We
that
have
was-
not.
That was not a
Yeah.
conversation being held
If-
at all.
If this group wants the mid-year to come back, you can, but from the staff, we've just said we're leaving it as is.
Okay.
And it seemed like from the salary, you know, the goal that we had to achieve a certain range, right?
Mhm.
Certain percentage of a certain range, we were at that point, so that extra catch-up wasn't necessary mid-year. We're not behind terribly like we were for so many years.
Yeah, we're definitely not as far behind as we were. You know, the URS guy came and did a presentation to the council. And in his presentation, he just mentioned how much salaries across the state had grown, which is actually one of the concerns URS has, because if salaries go up a lot, then that means the ultimate pension plan needs the money to pay for it. And so he came and did a presentation and talked about that a little bit. And in particular, public safety, you know, your police and fire has increased dramatically. And with that, other cities have tried to make sure they didn't leave others out. I mean, revenues were good, and so everyone got increased, but police and fire especially went up the most. which is good. I know Mayor Brewery's talked about it before. When he came on, the starting officer was making 19.72 an hour. Currently, I think the starting wage is 30.31. So,
Yeah, it was 17 an hour back in 2017 when we first started down that journey.
yeah. And when I first, in 2012, when it was 14.52.
I have a question. It's a little off subject, if that's okay. It's kind of insurance thing. If a police officer gets hurt on duty, does the city cover all of that, or does it just fall under his personal insurance?
Our workers' comp will
Okay.
cover it.
Then our insurance rate goes up.
The workers' comp insurance rate. Yeah. So last year it went up $50,000, which was about a 50% increase.
That's why you gotta have workplace safety
Yeah.
training all the time.
Well, but my thought is, because it's a policeman, if they're doing a ticket and they get hit by another car, it's them that have to
Right.
cover that.
Right.
And then they also, for those who end up with long-term injuries, there's a long-term disability plan that is part of our insurance package. But then for public safety, there are we pay money into the state that provides, even death benefits and things, that to help cover things that are
Is
unexpected.
that strictly for police, or do you have something similar for any staff who gets hurt?
So the long-term disability is for anybody. The other stuff is for public safety. So police and fire have that.
So if Dave falls down the sewer hole and breaks his leg, he's out of luck.
No.
Well, so for workers' comp, he'd be covered. But the public safety has a few extra things, and fire in particular, which it's a separate entity, but they have some additional coverage. And there's that mental health thing, where cities actually do provide mental health benefits for first responders after they've retired.
Oh, okay, that's good to know too.
Do you have a number of days? Break room. 2 now, or what we at?
Or like,
Well,
I know, I'm sorry. That's,
but no, so we've started a safety committee. I mean, this is a good conversation because we think it is saving us money. And with that safety committee, when we hear of what we call a near miss, we find out if there's something we should have been doing differently or a piece of equipment we need, and we'll do it. A good example is we used to have a pipe saw that cuts the water line when there's a leak. That just looks like a kind of a big concrete chainsaw looking thing. And now the new ones have an attachment that latches onto the pipe so it can't jostle and kick. And so we have one of those now because we had a near miss where it kicked and hit somebody and they got bruised, but it didn't break anything or cut anything. And as soon as that happened, we said, well, I mean, what is it? It was like a $4,000 machine, but if someone had been, broke a clavicle, that we would pay that in workers' comp in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So when you do have an incident, do you have a meeting after the fact and then review that with the staff to?
Yeah,
go over everything?
Dave would be better to answer that on what his team does.
but yes, absolutely. So not only we do it administratively, we have a safety that's the administration talks about, like kind of high level stuff. And then like for public works, we have our monthly ones that we talk about. And then if it's something like John said, where that one was pretty serious, like we addressed it like immediately and said, okay, how are we going to?
Do you try to do stand-up meetings and things like that before the guys go out every morning and?
Yep, so every Monday we have a massive one that talks about the whole week. And then every single morning we have a meeting that kind of, we know where everybody's going, making sure that we have coverage, that somebody's not working alone, that kind of stuff.
Great.
That's every morning.
Okay, Dave, a note for you since you're over parks. When you come on the first as part of the police admin, court, recs and parks, would you be prepared to, in your discussion, to talk about the question that Brenda had earlier, the suggestion, how many parks is the right amount? What do you think from your perspective? And the idea of neighborhoods volunteering to, care for parks, how would that work? What's the liabilities? What risk does that expose the city to? Those kinds of things. I mean, the park behind my house, we have 2 trees that are really dead. 1 tree that's alive and a bunch of lawn. So there's really nothing it's not like the park near, John's house that has lots of stuff that can be done. So it really varies park by park. And then there's also some liabilities and things that we have to be concerned about as a city with people out there. But if you'll be ready for that on the 1st, that gives you a month, and that way Brenda's ideas can be incorporated in.
Absolutely.
I'll take credit for John's idea.
All right, so committee staff comments, committee members. Mr. Arrington,
I have nothing else today.
Ms. Brenda.
Yeah, I spoke, yeah.
Okay. Miss Sandy,
I'm good, thanks.
Mr. Mike.
Nothing new.
Okay, do we have anybody that showed up online, John?
Nope. We're the only participant.
We're the only, okay, staff, councilman,
Nope.
David? Casey? Mayor? Well, we know you're here, but John?
Just a reminder, if you think of something you'd like answered before we talk about enterprise funds and admin, send it to Brian, and we'll make sure he forwards it on to Peter, and in this case, it would be Dave and Peter so they can come with the information you want answers to. But
We were still keeping Brian. I mean, because someone was saying that he may or may not be here. all the
Every
time.
other week.
Every other week.
Here every
Yeah,
other
he
week.
can't be here on the 1st. He can be here
So
on
he
the
has
3rd.
to be able to do it on the other meeting.
and he did commit to, he'll watch the video after the fact, so.
And he'll be very proud that we are 30 seconds away from making his 4:30 recommended end time. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Oh, man.